Going. Okay, I apologize for the glitch here on the Zoom link. So I went back and reposted those in every course shell. So hopefully that will knock out any potential confusion and problems that we may have moving forward. So we'll get that corrected immediately. So I want to welcome you to SPED 804. I may have had some of you guys previously. So if not, I'm Dr. Matt Posey. I've been with Fort Hays now this is my 5th year. Working for them. I am a public school educator. I live in Oklahoma. This is my 30th year. As a public school person, I've started off, my undergrad was in elementary education. Then I got into administration, served as building principal in elementary, middle school, then moved into a district superintendent role, also served as high school principal. So kind of a jack of all trades in the school system. Then after I completed my doctoral program, I decided I couldn't get enough of higher ed, so I went back and jumped in and picked up my hours to for school psychometrist to go in to do testing. We had some gaps as far as services in the school district that I worked in for 27 years as a small school, and so I did that mainly to help out our district. Always had an interest in it. Then after 27 years changed, needed a change, moved up into a bigger school district. So now serving a 3A school system with about 1,250 kids in it. So the small district I was in was a pre-K through 12 and worked in it for 27. So we had approximately 325 students. So big difference. Just in your small school, you wear a lot of hats. You can go to a bigger one and not so much. And so then started doing some adjunct instructing, and then did that for Fort Hays for a while, and then moved up into an instructor role. So I enjoy doing that. I like to stay busy. So always had an interest in special education, especially after I got into the testing side of it. So anyway, a little bit about me, a little bit about the course, kind of how we do it. Just so you know, I always check emails. I'm an early morning guy. So I usually check my emails anywhere from 5:30 to 7 in the morning. And then I turn around and get back on sometime after 5 o'clock p.m. and check them again. So if you need to send me an email, if you happen to send it perhaps after that 7 a.m., 7:30, somewhere in there, just know I'll get you on the back side. Always try to answer on that day when you send it to me. I always try to get back to you right within that. I like to do that so I don't leave you hanging out there with questions. Same thing with grading when we have assignments due, and I'll get into that in just a minute when I show you the syllabus. But I like to do my grading the same way. All of our assignments pretty much through this course, the 8 weeks, will always be due on like a Sunday night at midnight is how I set that up. I realize you guys are working adults. Things happen during the week. It kind of gives you the weekend, if you have things pop up during the week that kind of get you off course a little bit, so it gives you that Saturday and through Sunday to catch up if you need to, and just have it submitted by midnight. With that being said, I'll start grading. If you submit early, always look. If I have assignments that are submitted early, I'll go ahead and start scoring them and get them back to you. If you wait till that Sunday night, midnight, the deadline, which is perfectly fine, always start on them that next day, that Monday, and I try to have all the grading done and back with feedback to you on or before the end of the day, Tuesday. That's always my goal, so always try to do that. So always like to try to give you quick feedback. I remember being a graduate student, it always kind of drove me crazy. When you had an assignment due, you turned it in, you might go 3, 4, 5 weeks before you got any feedback on it. So you don't know what corrections you need to make. And that really wouldn't work with an 8-week course, right? That wouldn't be good. So anyway, so that's a little bit about the course as far as kind of how I do things. I will tell you this, we tell a lot of people when they come into the program, when we do the interviews to get in, the little interview sessions that we do, communication is really important. I always say that because I know life happens. I know you're working adults, you have family, you're being pulled in all these different directions, and then you're also trying to be a graduate student, right? Trying to keep up and balance all that. Things come up. If they do, just shoot me an email. Let me know, hey, I'm struggling right now. I've got all this going on at work. I may need an extension on an assignment. Communicate that with me in advance. Don't wait till Sunday night at 11 o'clock and then fire off an email and it's like, hey, I need some extra time. I'll work with you as long as you guys communicate with me in advance. Okay. I want you to be successful in the course. And learn some things and have a good experience. I'm not here to try to stress you out. Just communicate with me and let me know, hey, things are going on. And you give me a little extra time here, and I'll work with you on that. Okay. So that's kind of how we do it. Just communication's key on that. Okay. If you're struggling on an assignment, perhaps a group may have a little group project going on here, and your group needs to meet with me. You're stuck. You hit a wall. You need to meet. Just fire an email off to me. I'll set up and we'll do a quick Zoom with you on a night that's not a regular meeting night if we need to. I'm not opposed to doing that, and I've done it before in the past. Okay, especially on a group project. 'Cause I know trying to coordinate all that and work together, you may hit a hurdle or roadblock. So anyway, we'll work good. Okay. I'm going to quickly share my screen to kind of go over some things in the course shell to make sure you're familiar with it. Just kind of do an overview tonight. If you've looked ahead at the course shell over the weekend and even the first part of this week, and you got in there and taken a peek at it, you'll see the first week. It's just doing the introduction and also a first discussion post, and it talks about also going in and signing up for a group, which you'll be a part of as we move forward working on an assignment. So I'm going to kind of go over and walk you through some of the course shell, where some things are at, and take care of that tonight. Maybe get any frustrations out of the way so you don't have to search through it as we move along the course. Okay, if you'll bear with me, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, looks like on my side it's shared. Can you guys see my shell? Everyone good? Okay. If I get to going and I'm flipping through the screen and all of a sudden you're not seeing it, just throw a hand up or something, because I kind of get started and I just assume you're seeing everything on your end, and I don't want to just go off and leave not seeing it. So just feel free to know. In my course, we always have here a little schedule. So I go ahead and also post kind of a schedule, a breakdown that's very similar to what you see in the syllabus. So everything is in the course syllabus as far as the point I can look at quickly, so you'll just kind of know.
Your voice is cutting out really bad. Is that just on my end or anybody else's?
I have it too.
Okay, hang on just a minute. Let me shut down a couple of my tabs here. That might be part of the problem. How about now? Is that a little bit better? Okay. Someone scroll down to kind of the breakdown of each week. So basically, this course has 2 modules. First module will be weeks 1, 2, and 3. Then after that, we'll go into module 2, which is weeks 4 through 8. That'll finish us out. So 2 modules for this course. You'll see week 1. Basically, it's going in and doing the introduction. It's very brief. I don't know how many of you guys have already done that, but I would encourage you to go in there. If you have not, maybe hop on there after class. Just give a brief introduction to yourself. It also will kind of help you gauge about who would be good partners to work with. So when we sign up in these groups, each group will have a limit of 4. Okay, it will not allow you to enroll more than 4. And then you will want to email me. They will give you the option to email me and let me know who your group members are. I've actually had some already email me to let me know, and that way I can go in the course shell and help create that group for you. So you'll do the introduction this week. Also select a group for your FBA and BIP project. And then also go ahead and do the discussion 1, which I'll show you where those discussions are in just a minute. So that's basically your task for this week. And that is to have all that done by Sunday at midnight. Okay, so this first week's a little light compared to what we want you to do or asking you to do. So basically, it's just do the introduction, select your group for the FBA assignment, and then also go ahead and do your discussion number 1 post in Blackboard. Okay. Then it goes on down by the week. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about weeks 1 and 2 while we're on tonight, just kind of give you a little bit of an overview. Okay, so that was week 1. Week 2 has your readings on here, chapters 4 and 5 from the assigned text. You'll also, in week number 2, do your discussion number 2 on the discussion board, and then the can't do, won't do assignment, which I'm going to get into that in just a moment for you. And then we'll do a draft copy of a lesson plan focusing on correcting a behavior. Okay, the lesson plan will be focused on correcting a behavior, a problem behavior that you see in your room displayed by one of your students. Week number 2, draft copy of that. That is strictly a draft copy for you to submit to me. I'll review it, give you some feedback on it, get it back to you. And then week 3, Jordan, you're literally going to take that feedback, tweak it, correct it, okay, make some changes, modifications. Then you will resubmit that as your final lesson plan. Okay, so basically, you're going to do the draft during week 2, submit it to me. I'll review it, give you feedback, send it back to you. Then week 3, you'll make your changes, adjustments, and submit that as your final copy. Okay. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what is coming up the next couple weeks. Okay. Then you can go back and look at this syllabus. It breaks it right on down into weeks 4, 5, 6, and 8. Okay. As we do these Zoom meetings each week, I will focus on that week and then also go ahead and kind of get into the following week, what will be upcoming for you. So that way we're talking about what's current this week for you and also getting into the upcoming week to kind of introduce that and get you acclimated to what's going to be expected. Okay, that's right in your course shell under the course syllabus tab. You'll see the Zoom sessions. And I mentioned a while ago, I just went back and reposted all the links in here. I know we had a little bit of a glitch, so I've done that in all the sections. And also I posted it in the announcement sections to make sure we had a good link in there. So hopefully we won't have that issue again.
Quick question, the log the practicum hours, what is that regarding?
You won't have to worry about that. I need to take that out. Okay. That was something that slipped through on me and I didn't get that part out. So don't even worry about that. You won't even see that as an option in the assignments. Okay. That's something that we used to do for this course, and we had to go in and make some modifications when it rolled over to the 8-week format versus the 16. Okay, so just disregard that. Okay. You'll see here there's a starter tab, kind of gives you information over the assigned textbook and a little bit of an introduction to Blackboard Ultra. So some of your previous classes might have been in the Blackboard Classic, and then some of them you've had might be an Ultra, the new format. That's what I call it. Okay. This course is set up in the Ultra format. Most everyone on here tonight, are you familiar with Ultra format? Pretty much. Okay. Good. Okay. So then we'll get done in here. We have module 1. You'll see right here, there's a note, weeks 1 through 3. That's October 16th through November the 5th. Okay. So it breaks it down for you by the week. So we'll make sure everyone knows where to find everything. You'll see your assigned readings. Click on that, it'll show you. Here is the introduction. And it gives you the directions on there. Okay, this discussion post is meant to be a guide for you to collaborate and also kind of get to know one another so you can decide on some group members for your FBA project. Okay, just gives you 2 things to address. Introduce yourself. What's your name? What's the grade level of the student whom you work with? Okay, again, this information just gives you an idea. Someone maybe works with your particular grade level to help you be in that group. In our discussion 1, You'll see here for discussion 1, you can click on it. Everything before you click this tab is kind of condensed and bunched together. When you actually click on that, it will take you to a new page to where you can actually see the exact links that it references. It says start by reading the promoting self-determination article, which the links are provided below, and then read the why, what, and how of healthy self-regulation. So all the articles are right here, and then it gives you a discussion prompt for discussion number 1. So in one sentence, I want you to define in your own words what you feel like self-determination is based off your perception of it after reading those articles. Okay. You want to cite the 2 readings, and then also how do you plan to use mindfulness with your students? Okay, there's no right or wrong answer to this. Okay, it's your perception of the material that you have read, the information you've gleaned from that, and kind of what are your thoughts pertaining to that. Okay, so there's no right or wrong, guys. Those are easy points for you on those assignments. You'll post your response here. You can see we've already had some that posted their information. Okay. Also on here, part of the responsibility is to reply to your classmates. Okay. Offer some feedback to the response that they provided. So Jordan, you, in addition to putting your original post on there, you might want to go down and make a response to what Colette has posted. Okay, so you need to make sure you respond to at least 2 classmates in addition to your original post to get your full points. Okay. Any questions on that? Pretty self-explanatory, right? You guys have done discussion boards before. Okay. There are always going to be links on there for articles to help kind of guide you. Here you can click here to select group members for the FBA. So this is week 1 going in. And it gives you some directions here. It says you're going to work in some collaborative groups for a functional behavior assessment and also behavior intervention plan. When I mention those 2 documents, have you been in long enough working in the field that you've experienced or participated in the process of developing a functional behavior assessment or behavior intervention plan?
I'm working on one right now.
Okay, so Colette's into that right now. Is anyone else?
Yes.
So it's a process, right? Yeah, you just don't go in there and do it and just put some general statements in there and then employ that and it's into effect. It takes a lot of observations, it takes a lot of documenting and tracking and all that and developing. So it is a process. So in this class, we're going to learn the basics of it. We're going to do very basic FBA and also a very basic behavior intervention plan. You got to remember, this is an 8-week class format. So it's going to be very condensed and very basic, but we're going to walk through the process to give you some practice on how that works. Okay. So Colette, I think you indicated you were involved in it. I think you did as well. You're going to go, wow, this is not quite what I'm experiencing right now. Remember, it's condensed. Okay, it's just giving you the very basics. You're participating in a process that's very extensive right now. I'm sure in your school. Colette, how far are you into the process?
I've been documenting behaviors for almost 2 months, but I kept pushing for an FBA and it wasn't ever done. And so now I'm having to start doing an FBA on top of the behavior documentation.
Right.
So it's a mess.
It is a process. You are right. So again, remember, as we get into this, just remember we're doing a very basic, condensed version of it. But we feel like it's important for you to go through the process together with a group, collaborate with them, and learn the basics of it, so you'll be familiar with it if and when you get into that. Okay, so that is essentially care of week 1. You'll find all the weeks 1's information right there under that week 1 tab. It's all just stepped out for you. Okay, so again, introducing yourself. Very simple. Two things we're asking you to do on that: your name and grade level of students that you work with. Then also doing the discussion board post number 1, promoting self-determination using mindfulness. Also remember to respond to 2 of your classmates. And then also jumping in and selecting group members for your FBA and BIP assignments. Okay, so that's week 1. Very basic, easy, simple things. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump up and look at week number 2. I told you I'd always kind of through and talk ahead a little bit. You'll have your assigned readings from the text. You'll have your second discussion. Board topic, cultural sensitivity. Okay, talks a little bit about the prompt here. Again, if you don't hear without actually clicking on it, all the information is just kind of clumped together there. So I always say you might want to go ahead and click on the discussion board tab, and it will take you into a new page to where it's all spread out. Looks a lot neater, cleaner for you as far as the links. Everyone see the page, you'll see it's talking a bit about the prompt. It gives you the links or the articles, and then it's going to ask you, here's your prompt: how does the culture of school expect students behave? It's going to be different for every school, right? Every school culture is different. You may talk to peers that work in another district, and those peers may share with you, Cayman, they may say, oh my gosh, administration just lets kids run the rule the roost over here. No discipline. It's just a madhouse. And then in your district, your building principal, they may have a pretty handle on everything, and it's very structured. And kids, it's highly expected for kids to act right. And so it could be one extreme to the next. So it's always interesting when I get that feedback from students in this class when they start talking about their school culture and what's expected as far as behaviors and what's accepted and what's not. It asks you to provide examples about what is considered normal behavior in schools. Now, I mentioned something a while ago, coming off COVID, what is normal, right? You ask yourself that. I mean, coming off COVID, now what we see compared to pre-COVID, it's not day different, especially with seeing some more behavioral issues out of so many more students right now, right? It's almost like that is becoming the norm, unfortunately, because we're seeing just so many more of them. So it's always interesting, especially coming off COVID, to see kind of what considered normal behavior in schools now. Then also share time when a behavior you have seen was culturally normal for the student, but not normally for school. Okay, if you talk a little bit about specific student, always use a pseudonym, protect identities or initials, or just make up a false name. Okay, don't ever use the student's real name on this. You don't have an example to consider how a different cultural norm could run counter to the normal of a school. Can anybody just off top of your head think about situation in your existing district right now where you might see that? Yeah.
What I've noticed since COVID is what I really didn't see much of before, I'm seeing exponentially now of this. I want to stay home. I want to go home. I want to be at home, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Many kids, not just like one kindergartner, which commonly I would see, especially in Hispanic families. I'd see a lot of little ones, wanting to stay home with mommy, attach their hips. But now I'm seeing it amongst several grade levels.
Yeah. I'll just give you an example. I mean, here, even more, excuse me, the district I'm in, excuse me, we're seeing a very high number of our older students, like middle school, high school age, just all of a sudden coming off COVID and being at home all that time and having to participate in virtual. They trying to get them back in to a brick and mortar. Once they come back, it's just like it's just not working. I mean, they want to be at home, So we're seeing a higher number of that with our older students right now. And I don't know so much if you are in the districts where you're at, but definitely we are here. So yeah, that's a good example. Also with different, if you're in a large district and you may have a high Native American population or a high population of, I'll give you an example. A lot of schools here in the state, we're seeing an influx of Chinese students. And a lot of that is due to the grow industry in the state of Oklahoma. It's become big. It's just grown, exploded here. And a lot of it is owned by Chinese. And so we're getting those students. And so it's a huge cultural difference for them and how their culture expects things and how we do. So we see some definite differences there. So any other things that maybe stick out in your mind that you might be seeing that when you look at that prompt? Any others? I would say probably the COVID and the students wanting to stay at home is probably going to be a commonality amongst a lot of us.
I
Sure.
have some students that constantly need, like, they have a para beside them just so they can touch the para because they just need that physical touch.
Okay. So some sensory things going on, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What
I think with
about,
I
you
think with
brought up an
COVID,
interesting point. You brought up an interesting point. Talking about students needing pairs. I'm even seeing an increase of that where you're seeing more now one-on-one than you did even 5 years ago. Students that are requiring a one-on-one pair. I don't know if you guys are seeing that or not, but for some of that very reason. So I'm sorry. I think I might have cut someone off when I started talking there. I apologize. Who was that?
that was me. I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna bring up after COVID, I feel like a lot of kids rely more on like devices and that's all they want to be on. It's just like they're so addicted to that they can't even function normally and during a day of school.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of truth to that. I think you're spot on, Jordan, without a doubt. Which in turn, I mean, we could go into a whole discussion on this, but you know, uh, that in turn, that screen time, I think, definitely contributes to mental health issues and a spike in the mental health issues we're seeing right now. I mean, it all kind of goes together. All right, so kind of continuing on looking at week 2, so that's talking about some cultural sensitivity issues. So just based off some of the feedback there, it already has some good starting points on that you guys can respond. So I look forward to looking at your discussion board responses on that. Week 2, have a little assignment there. This is an interesting assignment. I always enjoy doing this and hearing feedback from the students. Called Can't Do, Won't Do. And I'm going to click on it just briefly. Can't do, won't do. And so this is an assignment that will take you through steps in this assignment to determine whether students can actually do the work or whether they just are refusing to. So it's trying to determine, okay, can they actually not do it because of a lack of skill set, or is it simply they just don't want to do it? So it's always interesting when we do this. So there are a couple articles attached that we ask you to read and skim through before you actually do this exercise. So one of them is on best practices. Then there's another article. It's called the 6 Reasons Students Are Unmotivated. And then you get into the actual can't do, won't do assignment to do. And it will walk you through some of the steps on that. And we'll actually walk through them when we meet on next week. It's going to ask you to come up with a couple of probes, CBM, curriculum-based measure probes, basically is what it is. And it's something that you can sit down with a student and ask them to complete this assignment. It could be something, I'll give you an example. Anybody familiar with old Mad Minutes? Everybody know what I'm talking about? Mad minutes. A lot of times we use those for math facts, and they were, time fillers. They were 1 minute timed, and there was multiple difficulty levels, and we would do that for filling time. You could actually use something like that and ask them to sit down and work it, and it will give you a quick assessment and help you determine whether they have the skill set to do it or they're just flat out refusing. And it kind of helps you gauge moving forward when you're working with that student to quickly determine on any other task that you give them whether they can actually do it or they simply don't have the skills to do it. And so there's a couple steps on here, getting some ideas. Also, I mentioned the 2 probes. Basically, a probe is just like the Mad Minute, just something that's short, quick, tool that you can give them, and then also identifying some incentives. We'll talk a little bit about that more in depth next week. Those incentives might be something that they actually, candy, or it could be some type of little incentive toy thing to give them to help kind of prod them and poke them along to see if it's something that motivates them to work. And then coming up with some accurate interpretations of your observations and determining whether they could actually do it or not. And it's going to have us score a couple things, and then we're going to compare the scores between the first probe and the second probe, and then it will help us determine whether they are just flat out refusing to do it or whether they can't. So it's pretty quick, easy tool, something that you can use moving forward in the future to help you with some students that maybe are struggling or displaying some behaviors to try to determine they lack skill set. So again, we'll get into more of that next week. I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit about that, what it entails. Then the draft lesson plan assignment, I mentioned that it's only a draft, so that falls into week 2. We have a template form on here for you that we ask that you use, and the reason we use template form is it is very similar to and correlates to the lesson plan format you will have to use when you do your PPAT, which is during your practicum course. That PPAT is like your comprehensive exam. And so we feel like by using this form, it will increase your chances of success. So basically, to kind of give you an idea to start thinking ahead into week number 2 is to think about a lesson plan to teach a replacement behavior. Okay, we're not asking you to develop a lesson plan for reading or math. It's focusing on a replacement behavior that you are observing. So what I'll encourage you to do, challenge you to do, is really the remainder of this week and even getting into the first part of next week before we meet again, just kind of watch some of your students. You may already have an idea of someone you might want to use that's been displaying some behaviors in your class that you're like, hey, I can use Johnny for this, or I can use this on Susie for this particular assignment, to try to come up with a replacement behavior. So if they're displaying some disruptive behavior in your class, and you're like, hey, I got to get this fixed, we got to correct this, that would be the student you'd want to use. And we're going to focus on that replacement and see if we can change their behavior pattern in your class. So here's some of the steps, the basic steps. I'm going to design a behavior lesson plan. The template form is right here. It's attached. I've kind of got my cursor on it. We've also attached some character standards, some emotional character standards to help kind of guide you on that. We're also asking you to use the attached document that has the ABCD objectives to help write the objectives for this. So a lot of times, and we're going to get into the ABCD objectives more next week. These are commonly used whenever you're getting ready or in the process of doing a functional behavior assessment, Colette. And I don't know if you guys have discussed much about it or have gotten into this ABCD objectives. We're going to talk more about those. I see you shaking your head, so you obviously have gotten into that and are familiar with it. But definitely will guide you as you're going through that FBA process. So again, we will focus on this more. We'll have some discussion on it next week on those ABCD objectives. But I just kind of wanted to briefly show you a little bit about this. If you want to take a peek at and look ahead on it before next Wednesday, and encourage you to do that. But we will talk about a lot of this specifics on that particular document, the ABCDs. Because those will be very helpful when we get into doing the FBA. Okay, so I just kind of want to show that to you tonight, make you familiar with that. Okay, so that pretty much covers the first couple of weeks. This kind of gives you the broad overview. I'm going to stop sharing on my screen, go back to the regular. Okay. Did I just totally confuse you on the first couple of weeks, or was that? It's pretty straightforward, okay? The first 2 to 3 weeks, kind of a little bit slower process. And then once we really get into the FBA, we'll be focusing on different parts of that. You'll kind of see how it's laid out, especially when we start module 2. That's what we're really focusing on. Module 2 is doing the FBA and the behavior intervention plan. And so we'll focus on a component of that each week. And you'll have different parts of that to submit. And then at the end, you'll submit the entire document projects. So those will be some of your assignments. Okay, so for week 1, you guys pretty much know, do your introduction. Okay, very short. Discussion 1, post on the discussion board. And then also I just went blank. Going in, I'm sorry, going in and getting into your group, trying to get in, go ahead and self-enroll into your FBA groups. Okay. And then we'll meet again on next Wednesday, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail, as I mentioned, on those ABCD objectives and the can't do, won't do assignment. Okay. All right. Anyone having questions? Cayman?
Sorry if I missed this, if you talked about it earlier, but in the syllabus, it mentioned something about logging practicum hours.
Yeah. I think Colette asked that question a while ago. So I need to take that out, so that we removed that when it was when we went from the 16-week format to the 8-week. Okay, it would be extremely challenging to get that in 8 weeks, because we used to ask them to get 50 hours. That was in a 16-week course. Okay, so I need to go back and remove that out, and I can repost that syllabus. So just ignore that practicum log and the 50 hours and all that. Don't worry about that. Okay. Almost impossible to get it in an 8-week format, in addition to the other things we're going to do. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question, Dr. Posey. How do we get in contact? Like, do we just randomly, like, do I just say, Sarah, do you want to be in my group? Or Jessica, do you want to be in my group?
You can
I mean-
message them on in the oh gosh, I just went blank. In Blackboard, you can do a message just to your classmates.
Okay. Is anybody on tonight, or is everybody in a group or not a group? No,
I
nobody?
think me, Logan, Chelsea, and Mary are in a group already.
I had out of the 5, so I've got 5 sections of 804. Okay, so not everyone obviously is on here, and you'll never see 100% on here during the Zoom session. So out of those 5 sessions, I think I've had 2 groups that have sent me messages, and it talks about on there to email me and let me know who your members are, so that way I know how to get them positioned in Blackboard in a group. So once you get your groups, and also doing that introduction, like who you are and what grade levels, it helps to look at that, because you really, if at all possible, you want to try to the best of your ability to try to get paired up with some people that work in grade level, similar grade levels to you. Okay.
So if we've already emailed you our group, do we need to self-enroll, or are you going to set that up for us?
I will set it up. Yeah, if you email me, I will go in and set it up. Okay?
All right, perfect.
All righty.
Thank you.
Any other questions? One thing, I think I mentioned this, but after each Zoom session, I always go in later that evening and download it, and then I'll post it in Blackboard, and I always do it in the announcement section. And so in the announcements, I'll put October 18th Zoom recording, and then right below it, you'll see the link and you can pull it up and review it. Okay, so I do that after every class. Okay, everyone good so far?
Yes, sir.
Hey, how about that? I got finished up before 10. All that done before 10 o'clock. How about that? No.
Thank you,
All right.
Dr. Posey.
You're welcome. Hey, I know you guys are busy and I want to respect your time. So you guys kind of know where we're at week 1 and kind of what we'll get into next week. We'll have some discussion on those objectives, ABCD, talk a little bit about that, and then start kind of talking about your lesson plan to make sure everyone's good there and has an understanding with that. Okay. All right.
you,
Thank you guys. Have a good one. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you.